As a child, Mike had some difficulty getting along with classmates and suffered some bullying as well. During recess, he had to wander around school grounds all by himself because he really had no friends and had to avoid the bullies. He was feeling painfully lonely. This isolation, together with some natural introversion and a tendency for visual spatial thinking, led Mike to a very idyllic imagination where he learned to zone out in his own mental world, only snapping out when someone physically shook him, as he didn't answer to verbal calls. He was also known for making strange gestures in the air, interacting with the objects he was imagining. This didn't make him very popular with professors or students and surely didn't help his grades. He has always been inquisitive and very easily bored, the latter also adding to his inclination of zoning out. But the appetite for intellectual stimulation could not be satisfied by fantasizing and daydreaming alone. This is why he was always reading and absorbing fantasy books and science books and articles, as well as watching cartoons and reading all types of comic books. And then came in Mike's father. He always bought him interesting things like electronic kits, microscopes, telescopes, chemistry sets, which he played with. The school counselors were originally considering making him repeat a year, because he was 2 years younger than his classmates and his grades were slipping. But after testing and discovering that he had the highest IQ in school, they decided that he could be a further 2 years ahead of where he already was. Given that result, they decided to hold him there just a little bit more, and added some extracurricular exercises and activities, like piano, fencing, and poetry, that would help him intellectually and socially. They also gave his parents solid warnings to never tell him his real IQ. People would possibly assume that Mike is narcissistic based on how many questions he asks, that only pertain to the potentiality of discovering himself. The intellectually gifted are, by some interpretation, so different from the broad population as to be considered outliers, and are statistically so far away from the mean and so unlikely to occur by chance, if the possibility of measurement error is eliminated, they can be considered as pertaining to another population set. But does this mean they are abnormal? Given that intelligence has a forceful genetic component, even if not entirely genetically determined, it is a distinct possibility that high IQ individuals are indeed what one might call mutants, as they are the result of an alteration of a DNA sequence of the human genome or chromosomes. Some studies show that there seem to be multiple genes influencing intelligence, and it is not known exactly which ones have what type of impact in the outcome. This makes it hard to establish that a mutation was indeed involved rather than simply a rare combination of specific genes. Another interesting factor is the possibility of giftedness coming from epigenetic alterations where it's gene expression rather than sequences that are changed. But here too there is a difficulty of determination due to a lack of knowledge as to which genes produce what impacts. And finally, as casually referred before, it might indeed be the emergence of giftedness needs a blend, a combination of both genetic and environmental elements, and with these genetic elements perhaps deriving from natural variations and groupings, with mutations and epigenetics. And how does all of this affect one's personality? Compared to those with a normal IQ, the high IQ individuals are or tend to be in more all-embracing need of intellectual stimulation, therefore displaying greater curiosity, a wide range of interest, and also embracing a change of tolerance and diversity. They also seem to be more detached and likely interested in social life and interactions in general. This is because they usually have a rich inner life and a wide range of somehow and not only abstract interests, partially because of finding it tiresome and unsatisfactory to deal with most people. High IQ individuals are much more skilled at logical, mathematical, and abstract linguistic thinking, including things such as learning and problem solving, and therefore to attain higher levels of formal training and education in socioeconomic success. And they are also more prone to depreciating their own intellect, and most do not see themselves as high IQ. They have better memory than most people, and at the same time are also more predisposed to being forgetful. And they also tend to be less social and to fancy being alone, but likely not because of lack of social skills. And they indeed tend to approximate the stereotype of being geeks and eccentrics. They are just as likely to have a Facebook account as anyone else, but probably use it less. High IQ individuals are more prone to being agnostics and atheists, but most embrace one religion or another. They are not particularly happy or sad, and they are less prone to committing suicide, and also less likely to get a divorce. They are not universally inclined to a given political orientation, and they tend to live longer. Of course, this is not a complete, complex, nor exhaustive list, but what is the translation? The high IQ individuals may be as well called mutants, but they may very well not be. It may be even the case that some are and some are not. We simply don't know yet. Nevertheless, we simply don't know enough about genetic makeup of intelligence to make such a judgment. We also don't know enough about the environmental aspects either. So is Mike a mutant? Whether all of this translates into a biological differentiation similar to a mutation, epigenetic effect, or even a differentiation of species is something to be at least considered, given the strong genetic elements of intelligence. And what should Mike do next? Because Mike found that it was incredibly easy to conceptualize metaphysical and metalogical concepts. He found logic to be agile and bendable. There is reasoning for everything. This tends to make people feel uncomfortable even though an idea is an idea, and there is no emotion tied to it. But Mike is a smart guy, and he has options, but the best one could be to start looking for people who have similar interests. There are prominent signs of intelligence that tend to be more easily spotted by those with higher IQs, so now Mike can start looking for people who have an appetite for information and knowledge, which includes not only curiosity but also a veritable need for intellectual stimulation. A person who displays a rapid perception, strong learning capacity, and substantial problem-solving abilities. It's also about a person who quickly understands your arguments without the need for much explanation, perhaps even anticipating the final conclusion before you get to it. And it's also about the ability to perceive and appreciate the relevant talents and accomplishments of others. So when Mike's gonna see most of these signs in someone, you can tell that they are an intellectual force to be reckoned with. Mike should also try to recognize intelligence in those around him, and try not to be remotely fazed by his superior intelligence, but rather excited by it, so that he can start learning from it. The truly extremely intelligent people are aware of their own limitations. So Mike, keep searching, never stop learning.